Good afternoon, and welcome to the Music and Technology Seminar at Carnegie Mellon. I think it's important and inspiring to check in with recent grads in the music tech area to see how and what they are doing after they graduate. Our guest today is Davis Polito, who describes himself as a creative technologist, perfect for a Carnegie Mellon graduate. Let's see exactly what he does and how he does it. Please welcome Davis Polito to the Music and Technology Seminar.
Hi, everyone. My name's Davis. I am now the former assistant director of the Princeton Laptop Orchestra. I'd previously been there for 3 years, doing both VST and physical instrument design, as well as leading the Princeton Laptop Orchestra. Um, Today, I'm just going to kind of talk about how I got to where I am and sort of the things I've learned, and the things that I found interesting about using technology to create art. Um, so I sort of started out having never done anything with audio, never played an instrument growing up, never done anything with computers. And when I got into college, I knew that I wanted to work with computers in some way. And as soon as I started taking computer science classes, there were things that had to do with audio that I was drawn to. And that like started out in the maybe second or third project we did in our intro programming class, just doing carpless strong synthesis, which is, if you haven't heard of this, is basically a feedback system that creates string-like sounds. And so it was a project used to explain how circular buffers or ring buffers work when programming. From there, I got super excited by embedded systems and this like low-level idea of algorithms that created audio. And I went on um, to work with a group called Retrolinear, and my professor in my embedded systems class actually went to Carnegie Mellon, and the owner of Retrolinear also went to Carnegie Mellon. Um, the owner was the TA for my um, professor. Uh, some of y'all may know these names, but Tim Warnick and Rahul, can't remember, Mangaram. If any of y'all taught, maybe Stern, you taught one of them perhaps. But they always talked about being hardcore and that like a lot of people weren't serious about doing these things and they kind of just like did them and didn't want to really dive into like how the technology was working, etc. And I felt that the concept of being hardcore was something that I really enjoyed, of like these lower level things that maybe not everybody gets into, um, were kind of the things that I thought I was particularly good at. I wasn't really a big algorithms and data structures guy. I actually probably finished my algorithms 2 exam first because there were 2 or 3 questions I couldn't even start. But embedded systems really made a lot of sense to me, so I kind of stuck with that. And then while I was doing that, I got super into making music. I learned from Mr. Bill's tutorials, if that's still something that people learn Ableton through. That's how I learned Ableton. And then by the time I was finishing up, I did a senior design project trying to create a GPU synthesizer. I was super interested in how this, technology, which had been used for years and years, in video and game production, could be used to create new audio algorithms or speed up current audio algorithms in a smaller form factor. So NVIDIA has this Jetson Nano, which is their series. It runs all sorts of things like car computer vision, all that kind of stuff. And so we were working on it, doing additive synthesis and phase vocoding, which phase vocoding is kind of the basis of auto tune. I had a lot of fun with this project, and even through iCorp was able to do product interviews and try and sort of turn it into something more than just a school project. And so I really enjoyed that. Um, and so I'll just skip over this. We did a bunch of interviews with people. Um, and sort of the thing that I got about this is that like the most important thing about music is making it fun and playing instruments. A lot of people don't like VSTs or soft synths, and people say that it's an analog versus digital thing. And I really just think that it's a tactile thing. If you sit in front of an instrument and you're playing with knobs, and you're now forced to think in this concept with this instrument, you're going to have a lot more fun. You're going to feel a lot more connected to the things that you create than if you're using a mouse and keyboard. Not that a mouse and keyboard can't be super inspiring. People do live coding. One of my friends, Will Rinkoff, who went to CMU, does live coding, and he does things with a keyboard that I could never do with 20 instruments around me. So it's all dependent on what you're going to want to do. But this is the sort of things that I gained from these projects. And then I went to grad school at Carnegie Mellon. And so there I kind of took a step back. I was still taking serious technology classes. I took Professor Stern's Advanced Digital Signal Processing. I took machine learning for signal processing. But I was really, really interested in what art I could create with these things. And so I'm going to click some of these links and we're going to pop in. So this was a project. Actually, I probably want to show this one. Um, so this is something that I made in um, Jesse Stiles' class, who no longer teaches. I think he teaches at Michigan now. Um, And so I was just like learning Max and trying to figure out what can you do with Max that is, simpler than doing something in C++ plus plus or another programming language that I knew well, and trying to really focus on like artistic aspects. So this was sort of a project kind of based off of like the sounds and soundscapes of One Otrix Point Never. Um, so taking samples and weird samples, he's an archival scientist. Like he got a degree in Parsons in archival sciences. And so a lot of his sounds and music come from digging through old archives. And so I hooked up a patch to the Internet Archive, which allowed me to like just pull random samples from the Internet Archive, and then manipulate them in Max and be able to generate new thoughts and creative projects just through that. And so I'll share a little bit of the sound there.
New album, Magic.
Okay. So that wasn't particularly loud, but and then also another thing that I was particularly proud of whenever I was graduating was this piece I made in Professor Frida Abtan's class. So I'll share a little bit of that. It's sort of, or is it not even here? Um, yeah, here we go. So this is sort of, oh, uh, let me pause it and go to the music. Um, I don't know why I can't get to. All right, well, I'll play it and see if I can't figure out how to move some of these Zoom things. Oh, here we go. Okay. Yeah, so this is just one of the final projects I did for Frida's class, and I'll just play a little bit of it since I don't have much time. But it sort of like shows the type of things I'm interested in are, glitches and that whole aesthetic of sound and things that you find as you're making things, going into a project, just like trying to make a bunch of things, and eventually you'll sort of figure out what the project is about. And that's kind of what happened in this song. yeah, so that was sort of the my aesthetic and things that like I was drawn to in grad school. And I made most of that using this DAW called Blockhead. Um, it's kind of an experimental DAW built around granular synthesis that, especially back then, would crash all the time. And I wrote a whole other piece that was like collections of like half-baked songs that would like literally just like crash and I'd lose the whole song. And I just like really enjoy finding, weird sounds that come from those sort of bugs, or even just come from learning how a synth or how a system works. A lot of those sounds were just, exploration and me trying to figure out maybe I could create this sound, but then finding something new along the way. Um, this is some other stuff that I've been doing with visual design. I use Touch Designer a lot these days in my projects. Um, and maybe this will play. Yeah, okay, so it won't play. Um, Probably on the other laptop. And then that sort of takes me to my time with the Princeton Laptop Orchestra. So that's the subtitle, How to Make Friends and Start a Career. It's just kind of like um, I think I talk a little bit about, I'll talk a little bit about this as I go on, but like um, being with the Princeton Laptop Orchestra and being around a bunch of people that were interested in this same idea of, well, how do we create new performance-based music um, that takes all these things that happen whenever you're creating electronic music and tries to sort of recontextualize them into a performance space. Y'all have Exploded Ensemble. I was in Exploded Ensemble. It's pretty much the exact same concept. We don't have it as a class. It's an outside of school thing, but we do the same sort of thing. This is now, I think, the 20th anniversary of PLOrk. PLOrk being the first laptop orchestra in academia. So there's a lot of stuff there, and it was a lot of fun. Yeah, I think I'd talk about it right there. Um, so yeah, when we're writing things, we have to take into account that most people are not trained musicians in PLOrk, and even if they are, they're probably not playing the instrument that they're trained on. Um, we make everything in PLOrk pretty much, and so there's never enough rehearsal time, and things are always breaking even up to the show because you're just trying to make new music, you're trying to make new technology. Um, it can be difficult to balance both of those tasks. And so you kind of have to build your compositions around knowing that people may not really understand what they're doing, but you have to create something that that works in that context. And so like the compositional framework for these things is pretty varied, but these are sort of the things that I sort of tried to distill it down to. Oftentimes, what we'll do is we'll have one instrument that has control from everybody. So we'll use um, these things we call the tethers, which are basically two joysticks with fishing line attached to them. And so that gives you X, Y, and Z, and can make for a really performative instrument. And so sometimes we'll network those together to be one instrument, or that everyone will play the same instrument using those things. And then yeah, sort of just networked things. Like always, we're always doing networked over Ethernet. I find network over Wi-Fi terrifying because once you get like 20 people in a room with their phones, it starts messing with the network. And I never spent the time to hide our Wi-Fi routers because then it makes setting up all of the performers more difficult. So we would just do Ethernet, and that fixed all of our network problems. So um, I use this as like just like a way to experiment. Um, I've never had a crowd really understand even when I explain to them what's going on. So long as it was something that was interesting, people enjoyed it and were kind of amazed of the things that you can do. So you're really allowed to do anything, because no one's going to understand it and no one's really going to question, oh, he didn't do that right. Like you should have, made the Y control this or the X control that. You kind of have free reign of experimentation. And that just sort of allows you to do whatever you want. And I use that to explore new technologies and do things I'd never done before. I think coming up yeah, so this piece here, Cat's Cradle, I use this as a way to learn more about using the tool Flucoma.
Step into Wix Studio.
Um, so if you haven't used Flucoma or you're not familiar with Max, Flucoma is a machine learning um, package in Max MSP that uh, allows you to do a lot of really complicated machine learning tasks really easily. So basically, this instrument or piece is based off of or inspired by the game Cat's Cradle, where you make different um, like knots or patterns with your hands between like a friend or something. It's like a game that kids play. But I worked with the composer Bora Yoon, and she had this idea, and so we built this instrument that using Flucoma, we just mapped out because we used four of these tethers, and so that's you know 2 times 3 times 4 um, dimensional space, and uh, boiled that down to a simple additive synthesis engine to create these sounds and allow us to compose movement and basically traverse that in-dimensional space um, through just a very simple like um, regressor mapping. And so I'll play a little bit of that. Yeah, and then it sort of goes on like that for a while, and then there's this next section where everyone's on stage, and it sort of changes. And that's sort of how the piece goes on. I can send you these links if y'all want to check them out. Um, how much time do I have left? Like maybe 10 minutes?
Yeah, about 7 to 8 minutes. Yeah.
Okay. So I will just again, I'm sorry for being so late. Um, we also did a project called Thermal Music, where we took radiative heaters and synced them to sound over MIDI. That was super fun. Um, and then one of the other things that I do is design other physical instruments for performers as well. So this is the electro bass. This is my real work. This is like C++, embedded systems, like serious hardcore engineering. Um, and so yeah, I think yeah, C++. Um, so then I'll also talk about this because I think this is was a really fun project. Um, so Extruded Curves was a piece based off of and with the artist Ezra Masch. He does these audiovisual installations where drummers come in and play this three-dimensional grid of LEDs. And so I contacted him. Let's see if this video will play. Nope. Okay. Well, I contacted him and we worked together to make these lights. And so let me see if yeah, and then this is my still work in progress uh thesis that I have started writing in case any of the professors here were wondering. I think I saw Tom in here. Um but yeah, I'll open it up to questions. Again, I'm really sorry for being late. If anyone has any questions or wants to talk about or look at one of these projects that I just overviewed very, very slowly, very, very quickly.
So Davis, I'm wondering, are you totally freelance or who hires you and how do you find work?
Yeah, yeah. So now that I've left the left PLOrk and left Princeton, I'm completely freelance. This project that I work on with Ezra, um, we've got several things coming up in the next year. One at the Bemis Center in Omaha, Nebraska. But I just emailed him after seeing his show in Philadelphia 3 years ago, whenever I was working at Princeton. And I was just like so inspired by the work, and I was just like, I want to work with you. I would love to, learn more about what you're doing. And then about a year later, he emailed me and said, "Yeah, hey, we got coffee and talked and seemed to work well." And he emailed me a year later and said, like, let's do something. And then I used that project as a way to learn Touch Designer. I'd never done Touch Designer or anything with LEDs before that. And now that I'm fully freelance, I've got a couple of projects that I'm trying to negotiate and get. But being fully freelance has been totally new to me, really scary. But I have finally gotten some traction about like 3 months into it. There are all sorts of forums that host these sort of job applications. Juice has a jobs forum. Touch Designer has a jobs forum. There's an interactive immersive HQ, which posts a lot of these jobs. Not most of those are more um, real job, more like full-time jobs. Um, and then a lot of these other projects, just like especially the Bora thing, she was a composer at Princeton. And so it does kind of come down to networking. And not networking in the sense I feel like when I was in college and at Princeton, I felt networking is such like a sleazy word. Like it was what all the business kids would talk about at Penn. And um but like it is kind of what you're doing, like whether or not you're just in the right place at the right time, or your friends recommend you to somebody. It's all a form of networking. So the freelance world, especially in creative technology, is just sort of about being around. A lot of these jobs sort of happen word of mouth, um, and just reaching out to people and just sending out emails like I did. Most people aren't going to respond, but every once in a while someone will respond, and that's how you sort of start any sort of thing. And some of these projects have bigger budgets than others. The work with Ezra doesn't have always the biggest budget, because we work in galleries, and so you're kind of beholden to whatever gallery grants are available and other things like that. But then when you do something with a bigger like corporate project like this project was done with Evans Sensory Percussion, and so there was a somewhat bigger budget, and we were able to do a bit more with that. But yeah, so I'm figuring out how to be freelance right now. I'm having some success, but I'm still figuring it out.
Hey Davis, one of those you showed was the bass guitar. What was the objective
Yes.
of that?
Yeah, so the electro bass is the electro bass, and then there's also the electro steel, which is a pedal steel guitar. So the objective, more or less, was my boss Jeff wants to create and use instruments that take advantage of performers. There's a word for it, but it takes advantage of things that performers can already do. When you're creating these new instruments and you create some sort of weird interface that some performer is going to make one piece with you, it's a lot of work for them to try and learn this new interface to create this one piece of music that they're never going to do again. But if you take advantage of an interface like the bass guitar or pedal steel guitar, which people train their whole lives to learn, um, you can create new music and new sounds that they can control more easily. So this instrument is like full recreation of the bass guitar, on the physical side, and then also a full VST synth, classic three oscillator wavetable synth with all sorts of modulation, like Serum or Massive or any other modern VST you would make. And one of the cruxes of this is that rather than it just being a MIDI controller, it's a full synthesis engine. So it has the audio engine on a chip in the guitar and on a chip in the pedal steel. Um, so that if you're a performer performing on stage, you don't have to worry about being hooked up to a computer, worrying about that thing crashing. Um, and it truly feels like an instrument that you can take with you in and of itself. And so this one has had a lot more success than our bass. This one has been on several country music albums that are going to come out within the next year or so. We've got it in the hands of like 10 Nashville session players. If anyone knows Orville Peck, or I think maybe the pedal steel player for like Luke Bryan or something has one. But people are actually really excited about this, which is super cool to work on something that a lot of people want to use.
Do they pay you for this?
So these right now are prototypes on loan, um, because we Jeff is still working on actually productizing it. There's a lot of design for manufacturing and other sort of things to do in an attempt to make it cost effective, because the pedal steel guitar market is rather niche.
If they put
So
it,
one day,
if they put it on some of their albums, they should give you something.
well, right now we're using them as product testers, so we're getting that out
Maybe I
of
could be
them.
your agent. I'm just
I would
kidding.
love that.
I'm done.
I would
I'm
love
done.
that.
I'm just kidding. Thank you.
Yeah.
Super cool, Davis. Definitely have like a lot of common interests, like with um using like Touch Designer and Flucoma and stuff like that, and in your work in Max. I was wondering if you could like link your portfolio so I could like look through some more of this
Yeah.
stuff.
Yeah. I don't have a portfolio link because I don't have a website right now, which is something I've been meaning to do. But I will share a physical copy of my PDF portfolio.
You just saw networking in place.
Yeah, and anyone on here, feel free to email me, message me. My Instagram is underscore Davis Staples, like Mavis Staples. My email is davispolito1 at Gmail, and I think I have that on a slide somewhere for people that want to see that. If I go all the way back here. And yeah, I'm also I do mix engineer work. I'm actually at my friend's studio. We're recording drums today. Um, if anyone needs some mixing, hit me up. Would love to work on some music with you. Yeah, any other questions or things that people would want to hear more about?
I have a question.
Go ahead.
Thank you so much, Davis, for your presentation. It's just incredibly amazing to see all the instruments that you worked on. And I'm also fascinated because I am also not, I didn't grow up playing music and I got into it later in life. How was that transition for you?
It's frustrating. It's really frustrating to be learning. I started learning to play drums basically when I got to Carnegie Mellon. My friend who had a drum kit um, at my undergrad gave me his drum kit when he left, and I was going from Philly to Pittsburgh, so I just took it with me. And so I started learning drums, and probably for the first 2 or 3 years, I was not good enough to play with anybody around me. Um, and so that's super frustrating. And then you see all these people that are, you know, like I was at Carnegie Mellon. There were 18-year-old kids coming in, like understanding everything about music better than me, and probably better than I ever will. But I just sort of enjoyed the process so much. I enjoyed learning and being challenged as an adult to do something that, they're going to be people that will always be better than me. Um, and so I think it's a lot of it has to do with just enjoying the nitty gritty parts. And that goes for the same of working on technology stuff, is I do actually just really enjoy fixing bugs, coming up with complicated systems, and like challenging myself to do something that I couldn't do. I started really like diving into it whenever I was I think I turned 21, and I told myself I was like, I'd wanted to do music for a while at that point, and I told myself I was like, well, like 10 years from now, I'm gonna be 30 regardless. So like I'd like to be 30 and like know how to play music. Because that's something I really want. And so I've done a lot of work and spent a lot of time trying to get good at those things. And so now, I mean, I play drums. I played in several bands when I was back in New Jersey. I played drums on the record that we were just working on. I played piano. Um, I can play bass a little bit based off of being able to play drums, but not very well. And I'm just still enjoying like getting better. And so every small little thing, I just like really savor it and enjoy it. And that isn't to say that like I'm always practicing. There are times where I go where I don't practice, and I just sort of follow whatever thing is exciting me at the moment, and try not to make it, I have to get good at this so that I can do this. It's just like, no, this is how I want to spend my free time, and so I'm going to do that.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
Any other questions? Anything in the chat window that we should see?
Oh, I'm taking MLSP and have taken DSP. What's some of the concepts you have learned from these classes that you've applied to your own works? So I did not do very well in MLSP. I, maybe I just didn't spend enough time on it. But the machine learning stuff did not click for me, on a level of I could implement these algorithms. But I did get from it a knowledge of what things that this technology can do. I mean, I definitely felt on like what I did learn from MLSP whenever I was building that Cat's Cradle project, because I did know the solution to that problem because I was in that class and I was thinking about those sort of things. The DSP stuff, I was actually kind of good at it. I TA'd for Richard Stern, Professor Stern, and I really enjoyed those classical DSP algorithms. And I think that understanding of the very basics of sort of how bugs appear. Like, so you would write all these DSP algorithms in MATLAB, and you'd have to debug it, and you'd have to figure out like, oh, what does an audio bug look like or sound like, or like how does the data stream end up whenever you're writing an audio algorithm. And so I think, and then on top of that, whenever I'm making music or doing some sort of technological thing with sound, I'm able to consider and understand like what are the core things that need to happen. And I think my knowledge of DSP and my understanding of like the basics of Fourier transforms and all that kind of stuff really helps me feel confident that I can do anything with sound, and jump into any project that is based in sound and really know where I am.
One more question, Davis. For some of these
Yeah.
projects that you're doing, are you doing a lot of the bring up yourself, like designing a board around like STM chip, or are you
Yeah.
kind of using microcontrollers that are kind of pre-made?
Yeah, so with the electro bass and electro synth, we previously had a board that Jeff had fully designed. He did the audio codec, the board layout, the whole thing. But we eventually found that I think we eventually found that the Electrosmith daisies are they're the same chip that we use. The audio codec is less good, so there's a little bit more noise, and it's a smaller memory footprint. But it's $60 cheaper because they're able to make it at scale. And so now we just use that as well as another Cypress semiconductor chip. Uh, and but then all of that is then put into a PCB design that integrates the sensors and all the other, because there are several sensors for both of those instruments, that need to be integrated. And then so we're doing all of that in C, and the smaller memory footprint only forced us to be better coders and figure out more things. We had to learn how to like write a bootloader and really think about what places in memory, SRAM, DRAM, SDRAM, all that stuff, where you're putting it, what you're doing with it. And we're still solving those problems. I'm still consulting with Princeton and working on those projects. But yeah, so we use STM32 microcontrollers. I've also used the was it the ESP32 microcontrollers are also incredible and have, I think their tool chain is a little difficult to get up, but once you have it up, it works. And they have so much example code. I use that for the LEDs to be able to make an LED controller and stuff. But yeah, does that answer your
That was
question?
the ESP32 you said?
Yeah, the ESP32s are great. I think if you were trying to get into something beyond Arduino, I would go ESP32s. And if you're really trying to just do something specifically audio, I would get the Daisy because their little pod ecosystem makes like, getting audio out and doing some of the things that might take you a little bit more of time, and they have a good audio codec. So I would if I was doing something that needs to generate audio, I would steer towards the Daisies, and if I was doing something that needed to be a controller, I would steer towards the ESP32s.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Yeah, but you could do either. You could probably do either on either platform, but that's in my experience.
What's the new thing in the chat window?
Justin was just
Talking about the Daisies, yeah.
Okay, any other questions? Davis, thank you so much for being here.
Yeah, thank you all so much for waiting and emailing me. I really can't believe that I made that mistake.
And keep us posted on what you're doing.
Yeah, I will. Please follow me on Instagram, and like if you have any questions or you're trying to start a project and you don't know where to start, please just ask me. I love helping people. I had so many people help me get all these things off the ground, and I would be like nowhere if it weren't for the people that helped me. So I love helping people.
Cool. All right, thank you very much.
All right, y'all have a good one.